This is Pete Moore, founder and managing partner at Integrity Square. We are one of the leading financial advisory firms in what we call the Halo sector. We coined that 8 years ago to stand for health, active, lifestyle, and outdoors. And we hope over the coming years, you will use this acronym to describe what sector you're in. You're in the Halo sector. I am going to be talking about the agreement that we're about to sign between the client and Integrity Square as your sell-side banker on selling 20 health clubs. I'm going to send you an engagement letter. We are engaged at the hip after we sign this letter. I am your exclusive financial advisor, I am your therapist, and I am your conciliary, along with my 3-person deal team that is going to take you from owning 100% of your business to hopefully selling 100% of your business. And that process is going to take anywhere between 6 to 12 months. So what I like to say is fasten your seatbelt, welcome to the roller coaster ride, and we are going to go and sell your business to the best buyer, which hopefully be based on price, but also based on terms. Now, we signed the engagement letter that is going to say, I am solely responsible through Integrity Square to sell your business. So if your friend shows up or another contact of yours shows up, but we're using all of our materials, then we have the right to our fee, which is anywhere between 3 to 5% of the success fee. And that will be for anyone that flows into our process, no matter who brings that person or that potential buyer to the process. Also, I'll have a tail period, which says anytime that we terminate this agreement, for 6 to 12 months after that, I will have a tail or a tag, if you will, on if your business is sold. I will get paid because it's most likely using all the materials that I'm about to talk about in our next 2-minute drill, what we're going to put together in order to make this a saleable business, make the adjustments that we need to EBITDA to get the highest valuation, and the multiple of EBITDA that we are going to fight for. We are just signed our engagement letter with our 20 club operator. We're going to come up with a cool name, probably Project Willow on behalf of Taylor Swift, or Project Cannonball, but we'll come up with some confidential name that will allow us to talk about your business, whether we're in an elevator, whether we're in an airport, or whether we're on a conference call. Okay, confidentiality in this process is key. We will have something called a kickoff call. We'll do that over Zoom or we'll do that in person. That kickoff call is going to be a way for you to teach our team everything we need to know about your business, how your business model works, how your special sauce is delivered, and what you see as the opportunities and risks of the business. It's super important for any banker to actually understand your business as if it was their own, for us to be able to champion that cause, pitch the business properly to potential buyers, understand some of the special sauce and the Kool-Aid that we need to drink in order to really get fired up to sell a company. So that kickoff call is basically you educating the banker on your company, all the things we need to know, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And then we will issue you what's called a due diligence request smart sheet. This is basically the start of your proctology exam. We are going to learn everything about your business, and we're going to try and figure out what a potential buyer is going to have issue with and try and get ahead of it. Getting ahead of issues in any sale process is basically the difference between success and failure. So once we have that diligence list, we start to put together our confidential information memo, which is our SIM, which is 40 pages in PowerPoint, and our workbook, which is going to adjust your financials the best we can and help you build out projections. That is the stage we're at right now. Keep coming back for more. Continuing the 2-minute drill on the sell side process. We just got all your materials. You and your management team and Integrity Square have finalized the SIM. We've got a document that we feel really good about. We've got a workbook and financial model that articulates what we think the future will look like and the projections on how profitable this business will potentially become under someone else's ownership. And then we're going to put together what we call a teaser. Okay, that teaser is basically a 1 to 2 page document with our code project name on it that is to be shared on a non-confidential basis with all the potential strategic and financial buyers that we want to go out to and talk to about your company. Now, once we have the teaser and we make calls to these groups and emails, and they say, yes, I'm interested in a 20-club health club chain, please send us the information. No information will go out until someone signs what's called an NDA, or a non-disclosure agreement, or a CA, a confidential agreement. This is basically a pinky swear between you and the potential buyer that is now going to have access to most of the confidential information that you are going to be providing in order to get someone comfortable that they want to own and that they will pay up and participate in a process with their time to review this opportunity. We might say we're going out to 10 buyers, and that would be called a fireside chat. We might go out to 100 buyers and call it a fireside chat, or we're going to run a full-fledged auction on the business and let people know that we are not entertaining one-off bids. We are running a process and they are going to participate according to our rules. I am 2 months into representing the owners of a 20-club health club chain that is called Project Willow. Project Willow is in the market and we're seeking an outright sale of the company, and we are in the process of signing non-disclosure agreements with all the potential buyers. Well, what's in a non-disclosure agreement? It's basically a buyer saying that all the confidential information that we are about to share with you, you will use solely for the purposes of evaluating this transaction. Now, this could last for 1 year, 2-year term, 3-year term, but what you're sharing with the market to potential buyers, if they are also operating businesses that compete with you in your markets, we might put a clause in there that all the information is going to be coded for a period of time, and that we are sharing enough information through the NDA and the materials that should give them a good description and evaluation set of materials to be able to make a claim on their end of what they think they would potentially pay for the business as a range. So if these 20 health clubs have $10 million in EBITDA or $10 million of cash flow, then they will potentially look at this as a multiple of what they would pay for that EBITDA. Typically, if I'm buying a club and I'm a strategic, my thoughts are I want to buy a club or I want to build a club. If I build a club, I usually get my money back within 5 years, 6 years maximum. Therefore, I'm typically not going to pay more than 5 times EBITDA or 6 times EBITDA for your business. That is a buy versus build if I'm adding clubs. We'll ask the strategics to put in an IOI, an indication of interest, typically within 4 to 6 weeks of sending them the materials after the NDA is signed. We are in month 3 of Project Willow, selling 20 health clubs to a strategic or a financial buyer. We might go out to 100 different groups, and we might have, let's say, 15 signed non-disclosure agreements or NDAs. They will get the confidential information memo, they will get the workbook, and they will get some other material documents, but they won't be getting leases, they won't be getting membership agreements, and they won't be getting any other sensitive data. Now, the banker, Integrity Square, will send out something called a bid instruction letter. That bid instruction letter will ask for IOIs, IOI, indications of interest, which is kind of a light way of saying, hey, tell me if you're interested. Give me a range of what you think this company is worth that you would pay. Let's say anywhere between 5 to 6 times cash flow or 50 to 60 million. I'm not going to pin you down on an exact number. I need to know how serious you are about doing this. I need to make sure you have the money to do it. I also want to know who's working on the deal, if you've hired any accountants or legal team to get into the next level of diligence and along with our process. And then what I'm also going to do is ask you what type of constraints or contingencies would have to happen in order for you to do this deal. Therefore, I need to know if you have $50 to $60 million in equity that you can write a check. I need to know if you have to borrow money and get debt financing, and that would be a contingency or a deal factor that would be part of your bid to sell the company. If I'm representing a seller, I want certainty of close, and I only want people with groups that are active and ready to do a deal. We are up to now 4 months into the process, and we have 5 groups under IOI, or indication of interest. Those groups have been alerted that they have been welcomed back into the process and that there are a handful of other potential groups in the process. The reason why I'll actually tell them how many groups are in the next phase is to make sure that they don't drop out by thinking that their probability of winning is too low to the point where they don't want to devote resources to try and win the auction to buy these 20 health clubs. Once that's delivered to them, we'll open up a full data room. That data room is a Dropbox with many folders that have a lot of information in it, such as your leases, such as your member roll forward reports, such as all of your financials and tax statements going back 3 to 5 years. What we are trying to do here is to answer any question that one of these 5 groups may have in order to submit a full-fledged letter of intent. This is typically 4 to 5 weeks after they've been opened up to the data room. And in the instruction letter that we provided, we'll ask them for a number of what they would pay. We'll ask them what their escrow account, how much money they'll hold back from the transaction. We'll also ask them to give us a diligence list of what else they need to do in order to affirm that this is the price that they are willing to pay. And we need to know what they're going to do on what's called quality of earnings report. That is basically a full-fledged accounting proctology exam that you and your CFO and controller are about to spend 4 to 6 weeks in urgent care to fulfill. It's true. It's fucking true, dude. I am back to report that we have received 5 letters of intent, or LOIs, from strategic parties and a couple of private equity funds that want to buy the business in a range of $50 to $60 million in enterprise value. We are now going to have a call or a meeting with our client to review the pros and cons, strengths and weaknesses of the 5 different letters of intent. At this point, we'll probably spend a week trying to fine-tune or optimize the letters of intent by redlining those back to the potential buyer to get the best terms on a non-binding letter of intent for them to buy the 20 clubs under codename Project Willow. Now, the selection process here is important because we have to go down to 1 buyer. We're going to have to tell 4 other buyers that they are not welcomed into the final round. Groups will then potentially try and increase or enhance their bid, or they might walk away and say, hey, we like this business at our price, but we're not moving. And if you have to come back to us, we will be available and we're still interested in the business, but we won't pay more for it. Once we go down the line with 1 buyer, the important thing that happens is something called exclusivity. If I'm a buyer of a business, I don't want to put resources and cash that I'm going to have to spend on the due diligence and the confirmatory review of all of the company's files and all their legal, all their permits, all their HR, everything I need to know to be sure that I want to buy this business. I need to know that you're not talking to any other buyers, right? Because I'm spending money, you have to give me that exclusivity in exchange. So we're going into an exclusivity, which could be 60 to 90 days with buyer called Ganelin Group.
Well, I made a cut, most of it.
We are under exclusivity in our sale process of Project Willow. What's about to happen next is a full review of all the seller's documents, full legal team on both sides going back and forth on information, and what is called in finance a Q of E. What a Q of E is a quality of earnings or forensic accounting review of the financials that have been provided by Integrity Square on behalf of the seller that are now checked by an independent accounting firm. That firm is trying to confirm that everything that we put down there actually happened in the business. In addition to that, they're going to question our EBITDA adjustments. So if there was a fire at a club last month, and that cost me $150,000 against my expenses and lowered my income. Integrity Square has advised the seller that that is a one-time occurrence, or what we like to call an extraordinary event. Extraordinary events are added back to raise our EBITDA, and that is typically the metric that buyers are looking to focus on in order to ensure the multiple that they're paying off of EBITDA is off of an EBITDA that they believe is achievable. Now, what they say about one-time extraordinary events is that they're typically recurring in different ways. So, as we went through recurring before, these are expenses that we don't want to have recurring, and convince a buyer to not tax us or charge us for that EBITDA. We're excited to report that we have picked the Ganelin Group as our potential financial buyer. They're going to pay us 6 times EBITDA, and we got through our quality of earnings report unscathed, where they have not questioned or changed any of our assumptions related to the cash flow that we are providing to the buyer in this deal. We just got the asset purchase agreement, which is the APA, which is another 50 pages of fun reading on your bedside any night of the week. That asset purchase agreement is going to be all of the assets that are going to be acquired by the Ganelin Group through a special purpose vehicle, an SPV, to acquire all of our assets, which will include all the clubs, all the leases, all the membership agreements, and the rest of the document is going to talk about things that could potentially go wrong and what you have to represent and warrant that we provided. So, as the owner, you are now part of what's called seller's knowledge, and you're also the signator on this transaction. This transaction will say we're going to buy the company for $60 million, and they have proposed a 5% out of that 60, which would be $3 million escrow account. Now, an escrow is a term from France. It was basically that if I bought a house, but I didn't pay for it yet, it's basically like the deed or the title that would go into a bank or go into a legal organization that would hold my deed until I paid for the title to a property. So just like that, escrow has now been used in the way of saying, I'm going to hold back some of that money, $3 million, to ensure that everything you told me in this asset purchase agreement and all the documents are actually true. If not, I'm going to come back and try and first tap the escrow account, which is a neutral bank account that now I'm going to take because you might have lied to me a little. We are officially signed under the asset purchase agreement, which took probably 5 drafts back and forth between our lawyers and the buyer's lawyers. We are now at a place where the seller knows exactly what they represent and warranted as what is truthful, and all the information that we provided in the drop boxes are all effectively guaranteed by the buyer, and that all of their seller's knowledge, if they know that a competitor is coming across the street, or if they know that there's some issue government-wise, or if there's a potential lawsuit, everything that we know has been disclosed to the buyer, and that we've answered all their questions. Now, the reps and warranties might survive 5 years, might survive 2 years, might survive 10. There's no survival period shorter than into perpetuity if you lie about the ownership of the company or taxes. That could be come back at the seller at any time. And now we're going from a signed purchase agreement into what we call lease assignment process. So if I'm a seller and I have 20 leases on 20 health clubs, I don't own any of the real estate, okay? In every lease agreement, there is a consent and assignment clause. That means we have to go back to all the different 20 landlords and get them to say, I'm fine and okay with the Ganelin Group and their assets and their portfolio company buying these clubs, and now they will be the ones paying the rent instead of me as the seller. If the seller is on a guarantee on any of the leases, we're going to try and get that seller off, or what would be called indemnified, or basically covered by the buyer. If for any reason the company is unable to pay the lease, it doesn't go back to the seller. So now we're on lease assignment and we're almost done. I am month 6 2/3 but I'm really at the 9th inning of this closing. We're excited to report that the company's financials have continued to perform. We're happy to report that all 20 landlords miraculously have signed their lease assignment process, and nothing's happened that has affected the business. No fires in any spas or saunas, no sexual harassment suits, no issues with any of the company's employees leaving that were said they were signing up for the buyer's deal. And everything is ready to go to funds flow. What do I mean by that? Once I go to funds flow, there is an Excel sheet that includes everyone that is getting money from the Gagnon Group on their purchase of the $60 million deal. The $3 million is going into Chase Bank's escrow account to hold for a rainy day, which will be released to the seller in 2 years if nothing is proven to be untrue. Then we have all the debt that is associated with all the equipment. So Macro Lease might have $10 million of debt on the equipment that are in my clubs. They get paid directly by the Gagnon Group because the Gagnon Group needs to know that those assets are now released and now they own them, because a debt provider will have a lien or a claim to equipment. So instead of me sending $60 million to my friend over at Project Willow, who's the seller, and hope and pray that he pays off all the debt will get paid at closing. So will the Integrity Square success fee. So will the accountants that were on the deal. So will all the closing fees and payments that need to be made potentially to any landlords on the change of control that are in there as security deposits. And the money is wired and the deal is done.
The deal has closed!
No way! And the tombstone is made up for a friend named Jason Grunfeld.
You okay? Yo, we heard this is your third tombstone. How do you feel?
Feels good. You know, it was a team effort, but you know, we got after it, and many more to come.
Go Rosa, go Halo. Let's go Grunfeld.
That's it, we're done. Done, bro.
That's a wrap.